Okay, so year 7. Now this slide looks far more complicated than it actually is, I promise you. This is something called a question matrix, and it helps us create questions. Now creating questions is really, really important because it helps you become a more curious and engaged learner, and no one ever found out the answer to anything without asking questions. So this is really, really important. Okay, so this is called a question matrix. So if you have a look at it, the red words down the left hand side are the words that you use to start a question with. So you can see you've got what, where, when, which, who, why, and how. Okay, now believe it or not, questions actually differ a lot in difficulty. So questions that begin with what are actually a lot easier than questions that begin with how. So if I said to you, what day of the week is it? You'd all know. If I said, how do you know what day of the week it is? That actually takes a little bit more thought. So when you're creating questions, what you will be doing is you will be using one of the red words from that left-hand side, followed by one of the green question stems at the top. So you might have a question that starts what is, what does, what did, what can, what should. These are our question stems. So if you think about sentence starters, they're a little bit like sentence starters for questions. Now, I want you to think about what your pathway is. Now, most of you are gold. I think there's the occasional silver, the occasional platinum. What I would like you to do is I'd like you to use the question stems for your pathway. So if you look at the blue box, silver and gold, I want you to think of 2 or 3 questions you would like to ask about the poem that you've just read. And your questions will have to start with which, why, can, could question stems. Okay, so you might say, you might start a question with why can, you might start another question with which could. Okay, platinum students, you are going to do questions that begin with how will, how might, how would. There's the platinum question stems. Now I actually think that all of you are more than capable of doing the platinum question stems, so you might just want to all have a go using the platinum ones. So think about the poem that you've just read, and I want you to come up with 2 or 3 questions you would like answered. So, for example, I might be thinking about the first stanza and thinking about my platinum question stem, which might be how might. I'm going to say, how might cars be like a serpent? So if you think about the first stanza, it talked about a serpent of cars. So the question that I might write might be, then how might cars be like a serpent? So the next slide that you go on, it's got 3 questions. Now, I don't mind if you make all 3 questions about one stanza, or you have 3 questions about completely different parts of the poem. Okay, so remember, you're using your question stems to write down questions that you have about this poem.